Welcome to Commanders Daily, everybody, your one-stop shop for everything going on with the Burgundy and Gold. I'm Bob Matthews. Hit that like and subscribe button so you don't miss a day of our coverage. Commanders have the day off today. They are back on the practice field Wednesday as they get ready for the Minnesota Vikings in Minnesota, hopefully going to break that 7-game losing streak now. So looking back on things, having a chance to look at a little bit of the All-22 tape and kind of marinate on everything that happened Sunday night, and we do have a few things to go over here. Want to start with one of the topics that you guys all were talking about in the comment section, and that's the refs. Yeah, the officiating, as bad as it is in the NFL, was particularly bad Sunday night. That crew did not have a good night at all, and I'd like to say that it almost cost the Commanders the game, but, you know, the weird thing about it was for every really bad call that went against the Commanders, at least they made some calls to even it up. And what I mean is I think the most egregious call that we all saw, and something that the NFL is going to have to figure out how to address in the offseason, was when Sean Payton and the Broncos challenged whether Marcus Mariota was down or not, and they won the challenge that he was contacted, and then his foot hit the ground, which meant that was a sack late in the game. You know the one I'm talking about. Well, the only reason he was contacted was because he was tripped by the defensive lineman. Now the refs missed the trip. But you go back and look at, you can't throw a flag on a challenge. So, you know, in that really twisted, turned around way, the Broncos got a break there. Thank God, at least, they did not miss the pass interference call on fourth down in overtime. But then, you know, calling back that 30-yard touchdown pass to Terry McLaurin, just, you know, for a call that, yeah, it was holding, but was it really that egregious? The thing about this crew, and really all crews that, you know, the theory that I subscribe to here is, look, I'm not saying put the whistles in your back pockets, you know, when it comes to crunch time, but don't, as an official, insert yourself into the game, you know, in a critical moment, unless it's really, really egregious. And that holding call on Josh Connerly was definitely not that egregious. Now, in the end, it didn't matter. Commanders still scored, missed the 2-point conversion, whatever. And, you know, it didn't completely affect the outcome of the game. But I agree with all of you that were saying the officiating was particularly bad Sunday night. Absolutely 100% agree with you. The sad part is those guys are probably going to get another primetime assignment sometime soon. So what were the bright spots after looking at the tape? Well, Mr. Connerly, despite the fact that that he had that holding call in overtime, Josh Connerly played a hell of a game. As a matter of fact, let's hear it. Big shout out to center Tyler Biadasz and the entire right side of the line. Did not give up a pressure, didn't give up a hurry, and all of them played really, really well. Connerly, in particular, you know, had such a rough start to his career, what with having to go against the Giants' defensive line and Max Crosby and Micah Parsons, and it went on and on and on for about the first month of the season. But Josh Connerly has had some really good games here in the last few weeks and is really, really starting to come on. Some of the other guys that I really, really like the play out of, Jordan McGee, who you know, is working mostly as a weak side linebacker right now. He's playing the will Mike and or the will position, and you've got Frankie Louvu dropping down and playing on the edge. But Jordan McGee has played exceptionally well the last, I don't know, I want to say 6 weeks or so. Not every week, you know. He did not play well against Kansas City, didn't play that great against Detroit, but then again, nobody did, but had a pretty decent game against Seattle, played really well against Dallas, and the last 2 weeks played exceptionally well. One of the best defensive players for the Commanders on Sunday night, just by looking at the tape and looking at the player grades. In fact, the entire defense went back and watched the All-22. And again, for the second week in a row, what we saw in the defensive backfield was the fact that there wasn't a lot of confusion right before the snap. Yeah, some of that had to do with Will Harris getting back and being able to stabilize the back four. But, they simplified the scheme, kept everything in front of them, and it worked. So while that has been, and coincidentally, defense only gave up 20 points, what you have to wonder, the bad part of that, the downside of that is, why did it take Dan Quinn so long to pull the trigger on that? I understand he is very loyal to Joe Witt, but at a certain point, before the season slipped away, he should have said either, A, I'm taking over, or this is the way we are going to run the defense. The good part of that is that it's not so much personnel, perhaps, as it was the coaching scheme. Look, schemes can be changed. It's a hell of a lot easier to change and tweak a scheme than it is replace a ton of players. Now, yeah, there is going to be an overhaul in the offseason. But again, I don't think the personnel is quite as bad as it looked on the field, for about 4 or 5 straight weeks there from the Bears game on down. I think that given the right scheme, making the right tweaks, this could have been a serviceable defense. If the defense had been serviceable, we already know the offense has been at the very least serviceable, and sometimes even better than that the last few weeks. And that leads us to point number 3 today, and that's, what could have been. I said it before. I really think we should be sitting here right now talking about a team that was a 2-point conversion away from being 7-5 right now. I really do. There is no reason that they should not have been able to handle their business against Chicago, Atlanta, and Miami. They just should have. And we have talked about why, most of it defensive shortcomings. But, I think that at the very worst, I can make an argument, a pretty logical one, that at the very worst, this team ought to be, 6-6 right now. And at 6-6, consider the possibilities had they just been able to handle their business where they could have handled their business. All right. The Eagles, we know that situation there, and I've said it for years, that the Eagles are a warehouse of illegal fireworks soaked in gas, and somebody's getting ready to light a match. Cowboys, you never know what you're going to get with them week to week. They've underachieved for the last 15, 20 years. I expect them to keep underachieving until they prove me wrong. If the Commanders were sitting here at 6-6 right now, their destiny would be in their own hands. It'd still be a pretty hard destiny to fulfill, but they could be sitting here today had they handled their business saying, you know what, we were one batted pass away from being a 7-win team. And even now at 6-6, if we win out, we win the division and go to the playoffs. It's pretty much that simple. If my math is slightly off, I've never been much of a math guy. But again, the Eagles are sitting here right now at 8-4. If you, as far as I know, head-to-head is your first tiebreaker. You win out, which would have meant sweeping Philly, and you wind up tied. There you go. But again, it's academic because that's not the way this transpired. Still, again, if the preponderance of what happened this year, where things went off the rail, was scheme, well, scheme is a lot easier to fix. It's a lot easier to change and tweak than it is, wholesale changes on the defense. Not that there's not going to be any, because there is, but it may not be quite as bad as we all thought. Coming up tomorrow, we'll take a closer look at Treylon Burks. I love the comments from you guys. I'm glad you guys kind of saw it the same way I did, which is, played really damn well, just came up a little short. That's what everybody is saying. And John's story, we're 82-86. We're going to talk about Traylon tomorrow. And yep, you're right. You're right, John. Great game against a top 5 defense. Michael Robertson, 73-97. Hope you like the fact that that I addressed the officials. Again, I would have addressed it last night, but you know what? It was just too damn late. And Mr. J. Roxas, yep, great game, HTTR. I agree. They played it. They played a very, very good game. It just didn't go their way. It does give me hope, though, for this Sunday against a Vikings team. And tomorrow I'll tell you why. It's going to do it for us. Don't forget, like and subscribe. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Like the wise man once said, if you're out on your bike tonight, as always, do wear white.